And Sarah, 38 years old, living alone in the suburbs of Reno, Nevada. For the past 12 years, I've worked tirelessly, balancing 2 jobs, never taking a vacation longer than 3 days, avoiding luxury purchases, skipping weekend outings. One goal kept me going through every exhausting night: owning a home of my own. And now I've done it. A modest 3-bedroom house on Oak Street, not near downtown, no pool, no pretty rose garden. My name is on the deed. The keys are in my hand, and no one can take it from me. I didn't borrow much from the bank because most of the money I put into this house came from sweat and endless overtime at my advertising agency and evening shifts at a local cafe. It's not glamorous, but it's warm. It's the milestone I dreamed of ever since my mother told me, "You need something of your own, Sarah, something no one can force you to give up." I still remember the first time I stepped into the empty house after signing the contract. No one clapped, no champagne, no cake. Just me and the sound of my own heartbeat thudding in my chest. I stood in the bare living room, clutching the keys so tightly they left mines on my palm, whispering to myself, "This is it. This is mine." This place was the peace I never had during an unstable childhood. Every morning, I wake up to soft sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, make a hot cup of coffee, play some jazz music, and sit at the wooden table I assembled myself. No one calls my name. No one tells me what to do. I don't have to listen to arguments through the walls, and that complete quiet is the greatest reward I've ever had. I treasure every inch of this house. Each scratch on the hardwood floor tells a story of my solitary move-in, dragging boxes until my arms ached. Each evening I sit by the window, golden light spilling down, and I think, finally, I have a place to breathe. Not everyone understands what it feels like to truly have a place of your own. Most of my friends are married with kids or living in stylish rentals downtown. They say it must be lonely living alone. Or buying a house now isn't smart. Or condos are easier. You get services. But I don't want easy. I want freedom to paint my bedroom whatever color I want without asking anyone. Freedom to hang old photos of my mom without someone calling them tacky. And most of all, freedom to say no to anyone who tries to step into this space without respecting what I've built. I thought I'd have at least a few years to enjoy this peace. But I was wrong. A storm was coming. Quiet, persistent, and shameless. It started with a nagging feeling in my gut, like the calm before a betrayal. And it all began with a phone call from my sister. Her husband, Noah, 36, once studied photography but never held a job for more than 6 months. They are the free spirit type you see on Instagram, always in a new city, posting desert hikes or beach yoga pics with captions like, "Choose adventure, not routine." Lily and I were never alike. I need stability like air, but Lily sees it as a cage. She once told me, half joking, "You live like a hermit, afraid of spontaneity." I'd rather have 1 year of real living than spend a lifetime stuck in an office with deadlines. I bit my tongue, but her words stung, like she was mocking the life I'd bled for. I didn't argue. Everyone has the right to choose their path. But I never imagined her version of real living would come crashing into the quiet world I'd built with so much care. 5 months ago, Lily and Noah sold their small house in Flagstaff where they'd lived for nearly 6 years with their 2 kids, Ethan and Mia, 4. They'd bragged about the hot housing market, sold at a great price, and decided to put it all into their dream, a year-long road trip around the U.S. in a van. "You should try living like this, just once," Lily said during a Zoom call. Her eyes were glowing, and behind her were stacks of boxes being hurriedly taped up. "We've planned everything. Airbnb stays, online work, selling crafts, making content, living free, teaching the kids from nature. Don't worry about us, okay? They're so predictable," Sarah, she added, smirking. "Always worrying about what could go wrong." I wasn't worried. I knew anything I said would be seen as negative energy, but deep inside, a chill ran down my spine. They were throwing themselves into a dream with no safety net. I still followed them on social media. During the first few weeks, everything looked dazzling. They posted shots at Yosemite, the Washington coast, and a music festival in Colorado. The kids wore colorful clothes, dancing in crowds. Lily captioned, "This is real childhood. No fences, no limits." I didn't hit like, didn't comment, Partly because I didn't want to burst their bubble, but also because I refused to become the safety net when that bubble eventually popped. I didn't have to wait long. 2 months into their journey, I got a call near midnight. Lily's name lit up on my screen. I hadn't even said hello when I heard her crying. Sarah. We've burned through all the money. Her voice was wrecked, nothing like the vibrant woman in those recent photos. Everything costs more than we expected. Airbnb prices are through the roof. The freelance gigs aren't paying on time. Our credit cards are maxing out. The kids are tired. They beg to go home every night. I stayed silent. Sarah, can we stay with you just for a few months? I swear we won't be any trouble. You're our only hope, Sarah sobbed. Please, don't turn us away. I looked around my house. The kitchen light was still on. The coffee was still warm on the table, and a part of me already knew this piece was about to shatter. Before I could say anything, Lily continued, her voice mixed with quiet sobs. Please let us stay just for a few months. A few months? We'll figure things out after that. I sat still in my familiar kitchen, eyes fixed on my phone screen. On one side, my sister's desperate voice. On the other, the soft yellow light falling on the painting Mom left me, the one I hung on the wall the first day I moved in. I had become so used to the calm of this space, and I knew the moment I said yes, it would all disappear. How long exactly? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 months. We just need time to get back on our feet, find work, pay off credit cards. Ethan and Mia need somewhere stable to study. I promise we won't be a burden. We'll stay out of your way. You owe us this, Sarah, she added sharply. After everything we've been through as sisters. I sighed and set my coffee down. My mind began racing. I had a 3-bedroom home, but one room was my office and the other was used for storage and my yoga mat. The space was perfect for me, a single woman who values order and solitude. Add 2 adults and 2 young kids. I couldn't even picture what that would look like. I took a deep breath and said slowly, Lily, I understand your situation, but honestly, I don't think living together is the right solution. There was a sudden silence. I'll never let someone, this is my home. I've lived here alone for nearly 7 years. I need peace to work. I have a structured routine and I can't upend my entire life just because you and Noah didn't plan properly. The line went quiet for a few more seconds. Then Lily spoke again, her voice low like she was trying to swallow her anger. So, you're saying no? You're abandoning us, Sarah. How can you be so cruel? Not exactly. I softened my tone. I'm willing to help. I can cover part of your rent for a few months. I also have friends in real estate who can help you find a decent place nearby that fits your budget. I thought I had offered a fair compromise, real support without sacrificing everything I had worked so hard to build. But Lily didn't see it that way. You know how we've been living these past 2 weeks, sleeping in the van at rest stops. Mia's had a fever for days, Ethan cries every night asking to go home, and you, the only one in this family with a house big enough, just turn your back like it's nothing. You're acting like we're strangers, she screamed. Do you even care about your own niece and nephew? I bit my lip and said nothing I'd regret. How many bedrooms do you have, Sarah? 3, right? Well, we're curled up in a freezing van in 30°C weather. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for a roof. And even that's too much. Her voice was rising. I could hear Noah saying something in the background. Then Mia's soft cough. A part of me ached. I love in those kids. They're my family, but I couldn't let emotion cloud reason. I'll transfer $2,500, 0 cents to you tomorrow, I said firmly. Use it for a security deposit on a rental. I'll ask my friend to help find a place nearby, but I can't let you and your entire family move in. Lily let out a bitter laugh, one that wasn't remotely amused. You really are heartless. I haven't asked you for anything in 12 years, but the one time I beg you, you say no. I should have known you'd choose your precious house over your own flesh and blood, she spat. It's not saying no, I said this time without softening. It's setting a boundary. I've spent years sacrificing for others. Now I want to live my own life. And that doesn't mean I don't care. She didn't say hello, just let out a sigh, then coldly asked, Sarah, are you really going to let your sister and her kids be out on the street? You're breaking my heart, Sarah, she added, her voice trembling. How did I raise a daughter who'd do this? I wasn't even surprised when the next morning my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My mother, Margaret, 65 years old, a woman whose voice is always soft but whose words cut like knives, called 3 times in 10 minutes. I was making coffee when she called a 4th time. I finally answered. Sarah, I heard everything from Lily. Her voice wasn't soft like usual. Are you really planning to abandon your sister and her 2 kids in the middle of a crisis? I leaned against the sink, gripping my coffee mug like it was the only thing keeping me steady in the storm building around me. Mom, I offered financial support. I even said I'd help cover a few months of rent for them. But I can't let them live in my house for nearly a year without a clear plan. I have my own life, you know that. She took a deep breath, then spoke like I'd just done something shameful. You always have to calculate everything, always need a clear plan. Lily's not like you. She lives from the heart. She might make mistakes, but at least they're the mistakes of someone who dares to live. And you? You're so cold, Sarah. You're pushing your family away, and for what? A house? I tightened my grip on the mug. Living with logic doesn't mean I'm heartless. You can't expect me to sacrifice everything just because my sister made choices without a backup. Silence? You've changed, Sarah. Her voice was soft now, but sharp like thorns. Ever since you got that house, all you think about is yourself. You should remember nothing lasts forever. One day you'll need someone too. And when that day comes, don't expect anyone to open their door for you. You're tearing this family apart, she whispered before hanging up. I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. I don't expect anyone to open a door for me, Mom, because I've always opened my own. And that's exactly why I value this home so much. After the call with my mom, I thought things might calm down, but they didn't. 2 hours later, my father, Henry, 70 years old, called. He didn't circle around like Mom. He went straight in, his voice sharper than I'd heard in years. Sarah, I can't believe you're refusing to help your own blood during a time like this. You're living alone in that huge 3-bedroom house, and your sister and her kids are sleeping in a van. Do you know how ashamed I am to hear this from everyone? He barked. I blinked. Dad, they're not homeless. They're staying in Airbnbs. They still have options. I already sent money. I even offered to help find them a place, but they don't want that. They want to live in my home for free. What's the big deal? It's just 9 months. Sarah, don't you remember when you first graduated and Lily let you crash at her place for 3 months? Did you forget? You gave you a roof when you had nothing, and now you repay her like this? I gave a tired laugh. Those 3 months were during college in a 1-bedroom apartment, on a couch, and I paid half the rent. Dad, this isn't the same. He wasn't listening. You're so wrapped up in being independent, you think just because you have a house and a job, you can say no to everyone. But if you live like that, when you fall, who's going to catch you? I took a deep breath. If I fall, it'll be because of choices I made. And I will never show up at someone's door asking them to give up their freedom to fix my mistakes. He went quiet, then finally said one last thing before hanging up. You're real proud of yourself, aren't you? But you'll learn. No matter how many houses you buy, they can't warm a life that's gone cold. You've shamed us all, Sarah, he muttered, his voice dripping with disappointment. I rested my head on my arm, exhausted. Not angry, just tired. I've been responsible all my life. I've always been the helper, the one who carried the weight. But the moment I set a boundary, I became cold, ungrateful, selfish. And Lily wasn't done. That evening, I got a message from an old classmate, Rachel, someone who still loosely kept in touch with both me and Lily. Sarah, what's going on? Lily posted a status saying she never expected the sister she trusted most to turn her back when the family needed her. She's telling everyone you laughed at her when she begged for help, Rachel added. I turned on the living room light, slowly sat down on the couch. My phone screen lit up with the public post. Sometimes the one who hurts you the most is the one you once admired, who only asked for a roof, but it turns out some hearts are colder than October frost. Dozens of comments underneath, most were familiar family names, and most weren't on my side. How could you, Sarah? Those poor kids, wrote my cousin Sophia. who hadn't spoken to me in years. I thought that after being ambushed by Mom, Dad, and the online crowd, Lily would understand that my decision wasn't going to change. I had been clear. I had explained. I had sent money. I had drawn a line, and I believed at the very least she'd respect that boundary. I was wrong. 1 week later, on a Saturday morning, I was watering the front yard when I heard a knock at the front door. I assumed it was a delivery. I had just ordered a new rug, but when I opened the door, I froze. Lily, Noah, and the 2 kids, Ethan and Mia, stood on my porch, surrounded by suitcases. Mia clutched a worn-out stuffed bear. Ethan yawned, his hair a mess, like he hadn't slept well. I stared at them speechless for several seconds. Lily looked completely composed, as if this was perfectly normal. "Good morning, sis," she said with a faint smile, like nothing had happened. "I knew you wouldn't let us struggle for too long. You can't turn us away now, not with the kids right here," she added, her tone smug. I didn't answer right away. My eyes shifted to Noah, who gave a quiet nod and stepped back with a suitcase. The 2 kids stood still, wide-eyed, looking around like they were waiting to be led inside. "Lily, what are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "We came to talk properly this time. Last time was over the phone, and things got a little tense. I knew you'd understand once you saw us in person. You've always had a soft heart." "Don't play the villain now, Sarah," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You know you can't say no to these kids." I couldn't believe it. She really thought she could use soft heart to change my mind? "And you brought all your stuff." I glanced at the suitcases. "Just to talk?" Lily exhaled like I was the unreasonable one. "Sarah, we're exhausted. The kids are sick. Mia's been coughing for 2 nights. You want to talk in a parking lot, or can we come in, have some water, and talk like normal people?" I looked at the 4 of them. My heart clenched when I saw Mia rubbing her eyes, but reason snapped me back. I couldn't let emotion take the wheel again. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "But just to talk, nothing more." Lily flashed a quick, triumphant smile before replacing it with her sweet sister face. They all stepped inside like they hadn't been turned down before. Noah placed the suitcases against the wall without asking or even looking at me. I led them to the living room, deliberately keeping distant. "Talk," I said, folding my arms. "What's the plan this time?" Lily sat down on the armchair, smoothing her hair. "Just 9 months. That's all we need. We won't be any trouble. Noah can do housework, I'll cook, clean, watch the kids. We'll keep everything spotless. You won't have to lift a finger. We'll even pay you rent once we're back on our feet," she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "And after 9 months," I cut in. Lily hesitated, then replied in a tone that felt rehearsed. "If things are stable, we'll rent our own place. And if not, well, we've been keeping an eye on some cheap flights. There are deals in Arizona, so maybe we could hit the road again." I let out a dry laugh. "So, after nearly a year living in my house, you still want to take off if you find a cheap flight? You really think that's okay?" That's when Noah finally spoke up. "We're not trying to take advantage, Sarah. We just thought maybe you'd be more understanding. You've got all this space and you're hoarding it like some miser," he snapped. I walked over to the window, avoiding their eyes. "You sold your house with no backup plan, blew all the money on hotels and restaurants, didn't save, didn't invest, didn't make any security net for the kids, and now you're here knocking on my door, expecting me to rearrange my entire life to fix the consequences of your reckless choices." Lily stood up, face flushed red. "So now you're lecturing me. You always think you're right, but living your whole life stuck in the same boring loop? What's there to admire in that? We're living. We're daring. And you're just scared. You're jealous because we took a chance and you never will," she shouted. I turned to face her directly. "Daring to live doesn't mean dumping your responsibilities on someone else and calling it freedom." The tension in the room was sharp as glass. Mia started to cry softly. Ethan buried his face in his dad's shirt. I spoke my last words, my voice ice cold. "I'm not changing my mind. You have 10 minutes to pack up and leave. If you need it, I'll call you a cab." Lily stared at me, a mix of shock and fury in her eyes. But this time, I didn't flinch. Lily stood frozen for a few seconds before her face turned red with rage. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and her eyes lost any trace of pleading. There was only anger now. You really have changed. You never used to be this cold, she hissed. You used to say you'd always be there for me. Did you forget that? You're throwing away our bond for a house, Sarah. I clenched my fist, but kept my voice steady. I did say that, but I never promised to carry the weight of every reckless decision you made. Reckless, Lily let out a bitter laugh. I chose to live authentically. I dared to dream. You're a ghost. Work, come home, lock the door, call it stability. I turned fully toward her. Yes, I choose stability because I know exactly what instability costs, and because I never want to stand at someone else's door with my entire family begging to stay without a plan in place. Noah couldn't stay out of it any longer. He stepped forward, his voice no longer gentle like before. I thought you'd be different, but turns out you've always been the type who only thinks about herself. Remember when I got married? Mom said you didn't want to pitch in because you were busy paying off student loans. Back then, you used the same excuse, prioritizing your future. Sound familiar? You've always been selfish, Sarah, just hiding it better back then, he sneered. I stared at Noah, stunned. He had the nerve to bring up something from nearly a decade ago. You're right. I didn't help financially back then because I was working 3 jobs to pay off my student debt. And I don't regret putting myself first during that time. That's how I built this life. And you don't get to use something I couldn't do in the past to make me sacrifice what I have now. Lily stepped closer, just a hand's width away from me. You're being selfish. You live alone. This house is twice the size of what you need, and yet you can't spare a little space for your own blood. I stood tall, not blinking. This isn't about space. It's about boundaries. Some people go their whole lives never setting any and then blame everyone else when things fall apart. I'm not one of them. You're punishing us because you're too weak to handle real life. Lily spat. Mia began to sob. Noah turned to comfort her, but Lily kept her eyes locked on mine, like if she glared hard enough I'd back down. You'll regret this, Lily said quietly, like a curse. One day when you need someone, no one will be there. I gave a faint smile, though something twisted in my chest. If the price of having someone stay is giving up my peace and freedom, then I'd rather be alone. Noah dragged the suitcase closer to the door. He looked at me like I was the worst person in the family. We won't bother you anymore, but just remember, you turned your back when your family truly needed you. You'll pay for this, Sarah. Karma's coming, he growled. I opened the door. The cold afternoon wind crept into the living room. Good luck, Lily. I mean it. She didn't reply. She just told Ethan to hold his sister's hand and pulled the suitcase out of my house without looking back. I stood there, my hand still gripping the doorknob. What I felt wasn't anger, and it wasn't triumph. Just an expanding emptiness in my chest, cold, heavy, and tired. But I knew one thing. If I gave in this time, there would never be a last time. I thought things would quiet down after Lily and Noah left, dragging their luggage and their glares behind them. I didn't expect gratitude, but I at least hoped they'd respect the boundary I'd set. I was wrong. So wrong, I paused to ask myself, had I really underestimated just how far my sister could twist the truth? Not even 24 hours later, my mother called again. She didn't wait for a hello. Her voice cracked like she'd been crying. Sarah, did you really kick them out onto the street? You watched those kids cry and just slam the door? You're a disgrace to this family, she sobbed. I froze in the kitchen, still holding my now cold coffee. What are you talking about? I didn't kick anyone out and left them out. I left them out. I didn't insult. I didn't shame them. But you closed the door and you turned your back, Lily said. You stood there, watched the kids cry and pointed them to the street. She said you laughed as Mia coughed, Sarah. Laughed. I was speechless. Mom, I never did that. I invited them into my home. We sat in the living room. Everything was said with reason, but they didn't want reason. They wanted me to give up my entire space just so they could feel like I cared enough. Mom went quiet. Then she ended the call with one line that hit me like a stone. No wonder you live alone now. Maybe it's just easier when there's no one around to disappoint. You've lost us all, Sarah, she whispered. That afternoon, my Aunt Eleanor, my mom's younger sister, sent a message. She rarely reaches out, usually just a holiday card here and there, But this time she sent a long paragraph accusing me of being cold as stone and forgetting all the times Lily helped you back when you were in college. You owe her, Sarah. She carried you when you were broke. That evening, my cousin Sophia commented on an old photo I posted weeks ago, me reading by the window. Books may open your mind, but they don't open your heart. You're a monster, Sarah, she added. I went still. It felt like I was on trial in a courtroom I never got invited to, and the verdict had already been decided. I tried not to react. I didn't post, didn't reply, but somehow my silence only gave people more reason to judge, as if saying nothing meant I was guilty. The next evening, my phone lit up with a message from Jessica, a college friend and someone who used to be close with Lily. Sarah, I don't want to interfere, but if your sister's really in that much trouble, maybe you could soften a little. It's only 9 months after all. She's family. You're acting like you're better than her, but you're just alone, she wrote. I replied with just one sentence. Would you be willing to let a family of 4 move into your 2-bedroom apartment? Jessica never responded. But messages like that kept coming in from old acquaintances, former classmates, past coworkers, people who had never stepped foot in this house, who had no idea how many years I worked until 2 cents secure, until I met another mutual friend, Michael, messaged with a more neutral tone. I get that Sarah wants boundaries. I just think if it were me, I'd compromise a little. I mean, you live alone. You're not using all that space, so why not share? Living alone doesn't mean living in excess. Just because I have 3 bedrooms doesn't mean I owe anyone the other 2. This house is the result of sacrifice. My right to live on my terms, bought with years of never getting sick, never quitting, never slipping up. And just as I was sitting alone in my living room, watching those messages pile up, my phone buzzed again. Dad was calling. You should know the whole family's watching you, Sarah, he said. He wasn't angry anymore. His voice had turned to something quieter, more threatening. No one understands why you won't let your sister stay. They're calling you the Ice Queen. Have you heard that? They're saying you've got no soul, Sarah, he added coldly. I let out a bitter laugh. I figured they'd call me a self-made woman, but I guess around here, independence is a crime. Dad said nothing else. He just hung up. I leaned back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. The peace I'd fought so hard to build wasn't being destroyed because I did something wrong, but because I refused to carry someone else's consequences. And I didn't regret it. But I was starting to understand something. When you start setting boundaries, the people who used to benefit from crossing them will be the ones who get the angriest. I should have known this was coming. From the way Lily looked at me that last time before walking out, I could already feel it. But intuition is different from seeing it unfold. Loud, clear, and public. Monday night, just after I stepped out of the shower, my phone blew up with notifications. I opened Instagram to check a message from a client, and instantly my feed erupted. The first post that popped up was from Lily herself. Her profile picture showed her hugging Mia, the backdrop a soft sunset. The caption was unusually long, full of emotion, and of course heavy with drama. And the only person in your family who could help chooses not to? When your kids are sleeping in a van in 30-degree weather and the sister you once admired just stands there in the doorway? What do you learn? That sometimes family isn't a place to return to. It's the place that hurts the most. My sister laughed as my kids shivered, then slammed the door. She wrote, "Me below." The post were more than 100 comments and rising by the minute. Relatives, distant cousins, old high school friends, even people I hadn't spoken to in years, all jumping in with comments like, "I can't believe her sister would do that. A 3-bedroom house, living alone, and she can't take in her own blood. How do you sleep at night? She's heartless." "Those kids deserve better," wrote an uncle I hadn't seen in a decade. I read each line, feeling like someone had a hand wrapped tight around my throat. What shocked me wasn't just the outrage. It was the unanimity Lily received. No one asked for my side. A one fact-checked. All they needed was a heart-tugging story and an easy villain. And I fit the role perfectly. I hadn't planned to respond. Honestly, I wanted to stay silent. But when even my Uncle Charles, the one who lives in another state and hasn't seen me in 8 years, commented, "I always thought Sarah was too cold," Logic without empathy kills the soul. You're a disgrace to our name, he added. I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and started typing. The first line wasn't defensive, it was clarity. I'm not someone who likes airing private matters online, but if someone drags me into the court of public opinion, I have the right to speak. I wrote everything, from start to finish. That I had sent money, offered to help with rent, invited Lily's whole family into my home to talk things through, and only said no to them living here for nearly a year with no clear plan. I wrote that I love my niece and nephew, but love doesn't mean losing your personal boundaries or sacrificing the peace I traded my youth to earn. I didn't use harsh language. I didn't smear my sister, but I told the truth. I didn't slam the door on 2 kids. I just refused to open it to indefinite dependency with zero accountability. I never laughed at my sister's pain. I cried for those kids. But I can't lose myself to save her, I wrote. I posted it at 10 p.m. Within 10 minutes, the first comment appeared. Finally, both sides of the story, then another. I once let someone rent my spare room for 3 months. It was a nightmare. I get it, Sarah. Still, not everyone was on my side. Plenty of people continued defending Lily, saying things like, family means sharing. Sarah's still being too rigid. She's just showing off her house to shame Lily, one cousin wrote. But at least this time I had a voice. At midnight, Lily texted a short, icy message. You chose to humiliate me in front of everyone. Don't be surprised when they all turn on you. You'll burn for this, Sarah, she added. Then she blocked me on Instagram. I stared at the screen in silence, not angry, not afraid, just strangely relieved. I knew it wasn't over. There were likely more messes ahead, but at least I didn't have to swallow the truth and let someone else rewrite my life the way they wanted. For the first time in days, I slept through the night. 3 days after I posted, tension in the family hit rock bottom. Lily vanished from all platforms. No more posts on Instagram, no more free spirit stories, no more dreamy comments from Noah about healing journeys. But that silence wasn't retreat. It was the calm before the next storm. That evening, while I was sorting paperwork in my home office, my phone rang. It was Dad, Henry. I hesitated. I knew this call wouldn't be easy, but I answered anyway. Are you really going to let this family fall apart over a post? I leaned against my desk and kept my tone steady. Dad, I didn't post to attack anyone. I posted to defend myself. I was dragged online and misrepresented. I have the right to speak. You have the right, but did you really need to make a scene? Lily said you aired family business for the world to judge. Now everyone knows, and they think our family is just full of fighting, no compassion. You've humiliated us all, Sarah. You're no daughter of mine, he said. I gave a bitter smile. And where was the compassion when everyone called me cold, selfish, emotionless? Who defended me then, Dad? There was a pause on his end. Then he spoke again, his voice lower but sharper. You should have been the bigger person. You're the older sister. You have a home. Lily's struggling. 9 months isn't forever. You should have opened the door, made peace. Your mother's been crying non-stop. She's sick with grief because of you, he added. I clenched my teeth. Do you think I'm trying to tear this family apart, or are you all just too used to me always backing down? Sarah, he barked, are you talking back to your father? No, I'm telling the truth, I said, exhaling. My voice softened, but didn't waver. I've lived my whole life responsibly. I never asked anyone for money, never asked anyone to hold my hand. I built my life brick by brick. And the first time I draw a boundary, suddenly I'm accused of destroying the family. So what? Peace only exists if I keep saying yes. If that's true, was it ever real peace? I'm done being your doormat, Dad, I said firmly. He went quiet for a long time. For the first time, I didn't hold back. I did help. I sent money. I opened up. But I can't open up my entire life so someone else can move in like it's owed to them. Lily isn't out on the street. She's just being told no because she refuses to take responsibility. A heavy breath on the other end. Then he spoke slowly. I just hope you won't regret this, Sarah. Some things, once they're lost, can't ever be regained. You've lost your family, Sarah. Forever, he said, his voice breaking. I swallowed the lump in my throat. If what I lose is the peace I fought so hard to build, then yes, I accept not getting it back. The call ended without a goodbye, just a flat beep and a silence so long it felt like it echoed. I set my phone on the table, my hands trembling slightly. I wasn't sure if it was anger, heartbreak, or release. Maybe it was all three. Right then, a new email notification popped up. It was from Lily. Subject: "You win, Sarah." The body of the message was only 3 lines. "You turned the whole family against me. Well done. I hope you enjoy sitting alone in the fortress you built from stone and rules. But remember, when you need someone, no one will be left. You're dead to me, Sarah. Dead." I stared at the words, and unexpectedly a bitter smile crept across my face. They didn't understand. I didn't choose to live alone because I don't need anyone. I chose to live alone because I was tired of always being the one needed but never understood. After Lily's final email, everything went eerily quiet. No more calls from Dad, no more guilt-ridden texts from Mom, and of course not a single word from Noah or the kids. My Instagram returned to normal, but my friend list had gotten shorter. A few people quietly unfriended me, others hid my posts from their feeds. I guess in their eyes, I'd become the poster woman for successful but heartless. I wasn't angry, just felt like I was standing on an isolated island. The days that followed passed in a distorted kind of calm. I still went to work, still consulted with clients, still watered the plants every Tuesday evening. But something in me had shifted. It wasn't regret, it wasn't sorrow, it was clarity. I began to see my family dynamic more clearly than ever before. As the eldest daughter, I was always told, Sarah has to set the example. Sarah needs to be patient. Sarah should give in. And I did all of it without complaints, without demands. But it wasn't until I said no that the masks finally fell off. Turns out, to a lot of people, I was only lovable as long as I was sacrificing. "You were never family to them, Sarah," I whispered to myself, the truth cutting deep. One Saturday afternoon, I sat on the back porch with a mug of hot tea, watching the jasmine I planted in early spring slowly lose its blooms. I no longer felt the need to prove to the world that I wasn't a bad person. I no longer felt responsible for healing the wounds of those unwilling to be accountable for their own pain. I just needed to breathe. In my own home, on my own terms, in the life I traded my youth to build. My mother still hadn't called. My father had sent only one brief text. "Whenever you're ready, the family's still here, but only if you beg for forgiveness," I muttered, knowing the unspoken condition. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to cut ties, but because I refused to reopen a relationship stuck in old patterns laced with one-sided expectations. I knew deep down that real connection only exists when both people are willing to grow, to take responsibility, and to respect each other. But that, blood alone, doesn't make us anything more than strangers. 3 months after the Instagram incident, I ran into Hannah, an old friend from book club. She used to be close with Lily in high school, but had distanced herself from that circle long ago. After class ended, she sat beside me and smiled. "I read your post. No one says it out loud, but I think a lot of people understood. They just don't have the courage to admit it." So surprised. Hannah was never the meddling type, but her voice was unusually sincere that day. "You know," she added, "maybe people are so bothered because you were brave enough to set a boundary and they aren't. You're stronger than all of them combined," she said softly. I smiled. A real smile, one that didn't need to defend itself. "I don't want anyone to take sides," I told her. "I just want people to stop rewriting the truth." Hannah nodded. That kind of strength, not many have it. That night, I stepped into my quiet home, the soft glow of jasmine candles welcoming me. The stillness embraced me, a sanctuary earned through years of sacrifice. I'm not the Sarah who once bowed to others' demands, trading her dreams for their comfort. Now, I stand firm, guarding the peace I built with my own hands. My story isn't just a family clash, it's a call to value yourself. In a world that expects women to give until they break, I chose self-respect over obligation. True love isn't endless sacrifice. It's the courage to say no, to protect your soul, and to inspire others to do the same.